So one of the things I like the most about the Nintendo Switch 2 is how much of a beefier platform it is compared to the Nintendo Switch 1. The Nintendo Switch 1 could only output a maximum of 1080p 60Hz when in docked mode and 720p 60Hz in handheld mode. The Nintendo Switch 2 can do up to 4K 60Hz in docked mode and 1080p 120Hz in handheld mode, thus giving you better visuals and better gameplay experiences. But I noticed something last night, something really weird, and some people have talked about this in certain circles and whatnot, but I didn't know about this. Spawnwave didn't know about this. MVG didn't know about this. Nate didn't know about this. So I feel like this is something that needs to be brought to a larger scale and larger attention, because your Nintendo Switch 2 games in docked mode might be looking worse than they actually should, and this was something that really surprised me when I figured it out finally, because I had to do a lot of tests to kind of figure out what was actually happening with this. So we're going to talk about that in today's video, how you can make your games potentially look better in docked mode than they already looked, because something on the Nintendo Switch 2 is actually holding it back. So I need to explain my setup to you guys and kind of how I do things. Upstairs in the living room, I have an LG CX TV. Now that is a 4K, I think 240 hertz, I don't know, maybe it's 120 hertz, HDR television, a sort of top of the line TV from a couple of years ago that I bought for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Now downstairs, I'm currently using a new Dell monitor that I just picked up over the weekend that does up to 4K, 120 hertz, and HDR. Before that, for years now, I had been using just a very cheap 1080p 60Hz monitor that I had purchased when I first bought this place, because when I moved, I had actually broken my second monitor. So I just needed something quick and cheap. That was like $80. This new Dell, it wasn't that expensive. It was only like $250. But I figured it would be better because I'm going to be down here recording footage more often. But the game in question was something I was playing last night, and this is when I was playing it upstairs, and that is Street Fighter 6. All right, so here I'm playing Street Fighter 6 on my LG CX television, and I am recording it off screen because that's kind of what I need to do here. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, it doesn't look right. The image looks softer. The colors look more muted. Something about this is off. So I'm like, okay, well maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the brightness setting for whatever reason. So I go into the brightness setting. I'm looking at these things. I'm like, I guess it makes a little bit of a difference, but the image quality is still a bit soft. So I'm pretty perplexed by this, because in my mind, I'm like, this isn't how it looked downstairs running through my capture card and running on my setup down there. So why does it look worse? Like, I don't think my new monitor is superior to my LG CX TV, which cost, 10 times more than the monitor did. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should look around at some of the system settings for the display, because I've heard things from other, channels and stuff like that, that there are some HDR sort of quips with the Nintendo Switch 2 that Nintendo themselves kind of need to iron out. But I'm not really a tech person like that, so I don't really know what I'm looking for here. I'm just kind of going through the motions. These are all the default settings for the Nintendo Switch 2. And I'm like, okay, well, this game maybe doesn't have HDR support. And so I tried to change that, but it was like, it didn't make a difference because it's recognizing that the game does not have HDR support. So I'm like, well, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. Let me go downstairs. Let me move the setup downstairs, connect to my capture card, and then play a little bit. Now, unfortunately, I'm a boob, and I forgot to turn on the 60 frames on this capture footage, so just bear with me with it. But now you can see the game, it's looking better. It's looking sharper. It's looking crisper. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's the monitor. No, it can't be the monitor. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So let me maybe take a look at the settings of this to see if maybe when I moved from the television upstairs to the setup downstairs, maybe something changed, or maybe when I connected to the monitor down here and my capture setup, maybe something changed in the settings, and then I can sort of cross-reference that to fix it on the television upstairs. So I scroll through the settings and I'm like, Okay, they're exactly the same. What is going on here? So I decided to take a look at the output settings of my television when playing this game. And you could see that the game is running at 1440p, 120 hertz. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. This is not a 120 hertz supported game. And why is it running at 1440p? That's going to diminish the image quality than it would at something like, a higher resolution. So I went down here, I went back into my settings, and I turned off 120 hertz support because it's not in this game. The TV then resets, and then, oh, look at this. Now we're at the resolution, and now we're at the hertz rate of 60 hertz. And oh my golly, look at the colors. I know it's hard to kind of see from the naked eye because I am filming off screen, but trust me, the colors, the resolution, everything is so much better with this. So I'm like, wait a minute. So essentially the Nintendo Switch 2 for some reason is telling the monitor, or the television in this case, that this game needs to run at 120 hertz. And because when you're running a game at 120 hertz in docked mode, 1440p is as high as it can go, it is lowering the resolution of the game and making the game look worse than it actually should be in terms of the output. Now, as far as everything goes with the Nintendo Switch 2. Right now, there's only 2 games that support 120 hertz. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to look at other games then. I need to see if there's any other games that are having this sort of issue that are essentially diminishing my visual quality when playing on the television because of the 120 hertz mode that is automatically on. So the next game I took a look at was Mario Kart World. And this is a game that, it looks great. It doesn't have 120 hertz on it. And I found something very interesting with Mario Kart World. You might notice here, when I'm toggling the Switch, nothing happens. Like the TV doesn't go black and then the VRR information changes and goes to 120 hertz. So Mario Kart World knows not to go into 120 hertz because it's not supported by this game. So it's not diminishing the visual quality, but a game like Street Fighter 6, for whatever reason, as of right now, hopefully a patch comes along, doesn't know that. So it is diminishing the visual quality. But what about a game that does support 120 hertz, but only in a certain mode? And that is Cyberpunk. So Cyberpunk supports 120 hertz in performance mode only. It'll do 120 hertz at 40 frames per second, thus meaning that you get a better visual quality in terms of moving around in the frames per second. So right now, I actually have the game in 120 hertz mode, but I'm not in performance mode. I'm still in quality mode. So is this a hidden mode that is just not talked about? How am I able to access this? Or is it putting it into performance mode, but it's just not saying it in the game itself? So now we have to do more tests, obviously. So let's go ahead and scroll down. We're going to turn off 120 hertz mode. And now we are running at the 4K 60 hertz mode, and it does look a bit better. Obviously, like I said, I'm filming this off screen, so it is kind of hard to tell. And, there's probably a little blur here and there. Hopefully it comes across good when I render this video. But now we're at the 60 hertz 4K output for the game. But now I'm thinking to myself, well, can I change it to performance mode in here? Because this is actually kind of baked into the game itself. It is an option that you could do within the game. So I go over here, go back to this, go ahead and turn this back on to see if I can do quality mode at 120 hertz by choosing an option. So then we're back in here. I want to move around a little bit because I actually haven't messed around with performance mode at all. I've been playing the entire game in quality mode. So I go down here, I change it to performance mode, and now it's running at 40 frames per second. It does feel a bit smoother, to be honest with you. I've kind of just adjusted to the 30 frames per second, but this does feel a bit smoother. So now I'm like, okay. So at this point, my head is just kind of spinning a little bit, and I'm not really understanding like what the hell is going on. So now I'm like thinking, okay, well, 120 hertz is in handheld mode as well. So let's check out handheld mode. So I booted up some Street Fighter 6 in handheld mode, and you know, everything looked good on the screen itself. And I'm like, well, okay, let me see if turning off 120 hertz makes a difference in handheld mode like it does in docked mode when playing this game in particular. And of course, it doesn't. Nothing happens with this. You turn it off, you turn it on, it doesn't matter. The game still looks exactly the same. So now I know you're thinking to yourself, well, RGT, why didn't you notice this when you were capturing your footage downstairs? You captured footage today. Why didn't you notice a difference? And the thing of it is that my capture card only does 60 hertz. So when I was capturing footage for Street Fighter 6 and all of the Switch 2 games that I've been showcasing, this system never could do 120 hertz because of the capture card basically overriding that sort of thing. So this is just insane to me. This is something that needs to be fixed because a game like Street Fighter 6 looks significantly worse with the automatic 120 hertz mode on. I say just turn off 120 hertz mode. Right now, only Cyberpunk 2077 and Nintendo Switch 2 Tour support 120 hertz mode. So there's really no reason for it to be on. If a game does not support 120 hertz, the Nintendo Switch 2 should not be outputting it at 120 hertz, thus diminishing the visual quality if it's not a mode that is supported by the game. It was something very frustrating, but I feel like there's a lot of people that don't know this, that don't understand this, and they might not be getting the best visual quality in certain games on their Nintendo Switch 2 because of this. Now, a game like Cyberpunk 2077, I mean, you kind of have to determine whether or not you want to play it in performance mode or in quality mode as to whether or not you want that 120 hertz on. But turn that off for now, man. Just turn it off for now. Hopefully Nintendo can do some sort of patch or fix something with the game. Maybe it's a Capcom related thing. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that this is a problematic thing that definitely needs to be addressed. So let me know in the comments section down below. Did you learn something today? Look, I'm teaching people. I'm teaching people about the battery stuff. I'm teaching people about different visual setting things that could be diminishing their quality of their image on the Nintendo Switch 2. Let me know if you knew this and what games you've tried out, if you've tried any out, and try some out. Like, honestly, if you have a nice display, obviously you have to have a 120 hertz display for this to even really matter. But if you have a nice display, test out some of those games. You know, check and see if your television is trying to output them to 120 hertz because of the Nintendo Switch 2 settings, and then try toggling that switch to see if you're getting better visual quality with that off, or if the game is automatically recognizing that, hey, this is not a 120 hertz game. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.